There is a quiet law, older than time and woven through the marrow of creation itself, a law that whispers to those who listen deeply. Every thought you think is not merely a flicker within your mind, but the birth of a universe. Not metaphorically, but literally. Each pulse of awareness sends ripples through the unseen fabric of reality, spawning entire dimensions of possibility, folding and unfolding like cosmic origami in the hands of consciousness itself. Imagine for a moment that your thoughts are not trapped behind your skull, sealed in private silence. Imagine instead that every thought is a frequency, a vibration that leaves your body like light from a star, expanding endlessly into the quantum sea. Every hope, fear, memory, and dream you've ever held does not vanish when the moment passes, it propagates. It becomes architecture in the invisible, scaffolding new worlds that mirror your inner weather. These are not poetic exaggerations, they are metaphysical facts disguised as mysteries. Science has begun to graze their edges, through quantum entanglement and observer effects. But long before physics gave it language, ancient mystics and forgotten civilizations already knew. The mind is the womb of the cosmos. The proof has always been hidden in plain sight, buried beneath the noise of modern understanding, veiled by the illusion that thoughts are ephemeral, meaningless, contained. But if thought is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed, where does it go? It becomes form. It becomes pattern. It becomes the unseen structure of your external experience. Reality itself is a hologram projected from the deepest strata of consciousness. What you perceive as the world is not separate from you. It is the crystallized echo of everything you have ever thought and believed. From the first spark of awareness to the last flicker of memory, you have been creating universes. When you imagine a future, that vision does not disappear, it branches. It becomes one timeline among infinite others, each governed by the vibration of the thought that birthed it. When you relive the past, you strengthen that timeline's hold upon your present. And when you think a thought of gratitude, compassion, or creation, you send an entire realm spiraling into existence, one where that energy manifests as form. Humanity lives unaware of this power, trapped in the illusion of linear cause and effect, because we've been conditioned to believe that consciousness emerges from matter. The truth is far more wondrous. Matter emerges within consciousness. This is why the ancients guarded their knowledge so fiercely. In Egypt, they called it Heka, the power of the word to shape worlds. In the Vedic texts, it was Manas, the creative principle of the mind. In quantum mysticism, it became the observer effect, reality collapsing into form only when consciousness interacts with it. Different languages, same secret. To know that every thought creates is to hold the power of gods. And to wield it unconsciously, as humanity has for ages, is to create chaos unknowingly. To populate the invisible with fear, doubt, and division. But the tides are turning. You are beginning to awaken. You sense it, the tremor in the air when you shift your perception, the strange synchronicities that appear when you think with intention, the way the world bends around your beliefs as though listening. The veil between thought and manifestation grows thin, and the hidden proof, long buried by dogma and distraction, begins to surface not in laboratories, but in the silence between your breaths, where awareness touches the infinite and realizes it has always been both the dreamer and the dream. When you start to grasp this, everything changes. The boundaries of the physical dissolve. You no longer see yourself as a mind in a body, but a galaxy of consciousness in motion, an eternal field sculpting reality from the inside out. The walls of your room become membranes of possibility. Your heartbeat becomes the pulse of the cosmos echoing in miniature. You realize that you were never inside the universe. The universe has always been inside you. The danger of this truth, and the reason it was hidden, is simple. Power without awareness leads to madness. If the untrained mind can shape reality, then unconscious thought becomes a weapon turned inward. That is why humanity has lived through ages of suffering, war, and division, not as punishment, but as unconscious creation. We built those realities through collective fear. We dreamed them into existence because we forgot that dreaming is an act of creation. The first awakening, then, is not to gain this power, it is to remember that we already hold it. So this is not merely a theory about thought or energy, it is an unveiling of your true nature. You are not the echo of the Big Bang. You are the one who caused it. You are not a bystander in the universe's unfolding story. You are the author. Pen in hand, writing with every passing thought. The question is not whether your thoughts create worlds. The question is, what kind of worlds are you creating? Because when you finally see the connection between your mind and the cosmos, between your inner monologue and the outer multiverse, you will never again dismiss a thought as harmless. You will think with reverence, imagine with intention, and realize that within every flicker of your awareness, a new universe begins to breathe. And when that realization dawns, when you truly feel it in your bones, you will understand why they hid this truth. Because a humanity that remembers its creative nature can no longer be controlled. It becomes infinite. To understand how every thought you think creates a universe, you must first abandon the comfortable fiction that reality is solid, fixed, and external. What appears as a stable world, the weight of your chair, the sound of your heartbeat, the sunlight on your skin, is not made of matter in any absolute sense. It is a vast, pulsing field of energy and probability, collapsing into tangible form only when observed. You have heard this before, perhaps as a philosophical curiosity or a quantum riddle, but its implications reach far deeper than science dares to tread. The act of thinking is the act of creation itself. Each thought is not a mere idea, it is a quantum command. It is an instruction sent into the fabric of the universe, encoded in vibration and frequency. Thought is light in its rawest form, consciousness condensed into structure. When you think, you project waves into the infinite field, and those waves, when sustained with emotion and belief, condense into matter. This is the hidden machinery of creation, veiled by language and misunderstood by logic. The universe is not a cold machine obeying fixed laws. It is a living mirror reflecting the content of your inner being. At the core of this hidden architecture lies the principle of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below. Every inner pattern of thought finds its echo in the outer world. Your experiences, circumstances, and relationships are not accidents, they are holographic projections of your internal programming. Change the source code, and the hologram must shift. It cannot do otherwise. This is not superstition but a universal law of resonance, one that has been whispered through mysticism, confirmed by quantum observation, and experienced by every individual who has ever dared to change their mind and watch reality follow. But thought alone is not enough, it is the quality of consciousness that wields it. A fleeting idea has little power, but a thought infused with emotion, intention, and belief becomes magnetic. It draws into form that which matches its vibration. This is why fear manifests fear, and love expands love. You are not punished by your emotions, you are simply creating from their frequency. The universe does not judge, it merely mirrors. You do not attract what you want, you become what you want. And the universe rearranges itself accordingly. This is the hidden proof they never wanted you to find. Because if humanity collectively understood this, if every person realized that their thoughts shape not only their life but entire timelines of existence, the world would transform overnight. Systems of control would crumble, fear would lose its currency, and power would shift from institutions to individuals. That is why this knowledge was encoded in allegory, buried in sacred geometry, concealed in art and myth. Only those with eyes to see would recognize that the temple was never built of stone, it was built of thought. Time itself, too, is a construct born of thought. When you think, you stretch consciousness into linear sequence, past, present, and future. But the deeper reality is simultaneous. Every possibility already exists. Every outcome has already been dreamed. What you call manifestation is not creation ex nihilo. It is selection from an infinite library of universes. Your thoughts act as the key, opening doors to the frequency that matches your inner state. In one timeline, you are poor; in another, you are free; in one, you are sick; in another, you are luminous. The difference between those realities is not luck, but alignment. Thought is the navigator through infinite potential. And yet, humanity has been hypnotized to think unconsciously. We let thoughts drift like smoke, unaware that each wisp builds worlds. We replay fears, resentments, and doubts, sculpting realities of limitation. The collective field of human thought, what mystics call the noosphere, has become a dense fog of confusion. A tangle of narratives that trap us in repeating loops. Wars, poverty, and separation are not imposed by external gods or fates. They are the byproducts of shared thought forms. Self-reinforcing programs running in the cosmic field. The Matrix is not a machine. It is the echo of human imagination gone unexamined. But within that very recognition lies liberation. The moment you see that your thoughts create, you begin to reclaim authorship. Awareness breaks the spell. When you think consciously, when you direct your inner voice with precision, love, and clarity, you reprogram the hologram. You become a lucid dreamer in the cosmic sleep, realizing that every thought is a brushstroke on the canvas of existence. Even science, in its cautious language, edges toward this truth. Experiments in quantum entanglement, the double-slit test, and observer-dependent phenomena all whisper the same message. Consciousness is not a passive witness but the active principle that gives reality its shape. When an electron behaves differently under observation, what is it responding to, if not thought itself? When time dilates near the speed of light, who determines what speed, or now, means? The boundaries blur until we see what mystics have always known. There is no objective reality without the observer. You are not inside the universe, watching it unfold. The universe is inside you, unfolding because you think. Every person you meet, every place you go, every experience you have is part of your dreamscape, alive because you have given it awareness. There is no separation between inner and outer, between thought and thing. There is only consciousness reflecting itself through infinite mirrors, dreaming universes into being with every spark of imagination. And so, the question shifts. The issue is no longer if you create with thought, but how consciously you are doing it. Are you creating by default, repeating the patterns of inherited belief and cultural hypnosis? Or are you stepping into the divine role of creator, sculpting your existence from the blueprint of deliberate intention? Every thought is a seed, and the universe is the soil. The harvest depends on what you plant. The secret has been hidden not because it is dangerous, but because it is sacred. To know that every thought births a world is to hold the weight of infinity in your mind. It demands responsibility, awareness, reverence, but it also offers the highest freedom imaginable, the freedom to create heaven or hell. Moment by moment, within the vast theater of your own consciousness in the old temples of Egypt, there were no words carved casually upon the stone. Every hieroglyph was a formula, every symbol a vibration. The priests knew what modern minds have forgotten, that symbols are not decorations of thought, but containers of power. Each shape, number, and sound was a living current, resonating through the fabric of existence. To read those symbols was not to interpret, but to remember. The universe itself speaks this language, and once you learn to hear it, you realize that everything you've ever seen, from the spiral of a galaxy to the shape of your fingerprint, is part of a vast, hidden code. The ancients called it the divine geometry. The mystics called it the Word made flesh. And in our modern age, Science has begun to glimpse it through the equations of fractals and quantum harmonics. The cosmos is not chaos, it is a perfect structure of repeating patterns. Vibrating across scales of magnitude, the spiral of a shell mirrors the spiral of a hurricane, which mirrors the spiral of a galaxy. These patterns are not coincidences, they are signatures of a single consciousness expressing itself through infinite form. Every time you think, you draw upon this sacred geometry. A thought is not abstract, it creates a shape in the invisible field. Love forms coherence, fear distorts it. That is why certain symbols, sounds, or even intentions can heal or harm. They resonate with the blueprint of creation itself. The ancients encoded this truth into their myths and architecture. The pyramids, the mandalas, the labyrinths, all were not mere art, but technologies of consciousness. They aligned the mind with the cosmic order, tuning human awareness to the same frequency as the stars. To live without knowledge of this symbolic order is to be trapped in translation. Most people walk through life reading reality only at its surface level, seeing events, objects, and people as separate, random things. But beneath the surface, every moment carries a pattern, a message, an echo from the invisible world. The outer world is a symbolic mirror, showing you the content of your inner world, the arguments you have, the coincidences that occur, the dreams that haunt you. All are communications from the deeper strata of consciousness. Consider the nature of dreams. In them, impossible things happen. You fly. You meet the dead. You speak in forgotten tongues. And yet, when you awaken, the dream dissolves, but the emotions linger, as if the dream was real in another dimension. Now imagine that waking life functions the same way. Reality, too, is a dream, one of higher density and longer rhythm. The symbols you encounter here, numbers, faces, synchronicities, are dream signs guiding you toward remembrance. Each coincidence is a whisper from your higher self, saying, "Wake up, this is not random." This is why mystics across time have described life as a cosmic play, a grand illusion, or a divine dream. The Vedic sages called it Maya. The Gnostics called it the Pleroma's shadow. Quantum physicists call it the holographic universe. But all these names point to the same truth. What you perceive as reality is a projection of mind, layer upon layer of symbolic reflection. Every object, every encounter, every breath is part of a grand narrative written by consciousness for its own awakening. Even the darkest moments in your life, those you call tragedy, loss, or chaos, are not meaningless. They are sacred initiations, symbols in motion. When an old structure collapses, it mirrors the death of an outdated pattern within you. When you meet a person who challenges you, they are not your enemy but an archetype, a living mirror reflecting your hidden shadow. The world is not against you, it is communicating with you in a symbolic code. Once you begin to read it, suffering transforms into understanding, and pain becomes revelation. The same principle applies to collective reality. Civilizations rise and fall according to archetypal cycles encoded in the collective psyche. The fall of empires mirrors the fall of inner integrity. The emergence of technology reflects humanity's externalization of divine power. Even our myths, gods descending from the heavens, heroes slaying dragons, floods cleansing the earth, are not literal events but psychological blueprints repeated across epochs. They are humanity's collective dreams, retold in form, time after time, until the species awakens to its own authorship. You are living inside one such myth right now. The myth of separation, the belief that you are a solitary being in a material universe, struggling for survival among other disconnected entities. This story has defined human history for millennia, shaping our religions, politics, and sciences. But it was never the final truth. It was the necessary illusion for consciousness to experience contrast. Only through forgetting could we rediscover Only through limitation could we recognize infinity. The game of separation was the price of awakening. And now, that story is ending. Humanity stands at the threshold between myths, the old tale of division fading, the new tale of unity emerging. We are remembering that we are not victims of creation, but creators within it. The Great Awakening spoken of by mystics and prophets is not a cosmic event descending from the sky. It is a shift in symbolic literacy. It is the collective realization that the world is a mirror, and that the language of that mirror is emotion, symbol, and thought. Look closely at your life right now. The repeating numbers you notice, the dreams that return, the emotions that refuse to fade, these are not random. They are messages, encrypted in the geometry of your own experience. They are the universe speaking in the only way it can, through reflection. You are both the dreamer and the dream, the writer and the written word. And perhaps the greatest secret of all is this: you do not need to learn this language, you are already fluent. The soul never forgot how to speak in symbols, it only fell asleep to its own meaning. The moment you begin to see patterns instead of problems, guidance instead of chaos, you awaken that ancient fluency. You start to participate consciously in the symphony of creation, no longer reacting to reality but composing it. The stars above, the pulse of your heart, the rhythm of your breath, all sing the same song, written in the same alphabet of vibration. Once you begin to hear it, you will realize something profound. You are never separate from the universe trying to understand it. You are the universe, remembering its own design. Imagine standing before a mirror so vast it reflects not just your body, but your thoughts, your emotions, your silent beliefs. Each flicker of doubt, each burst of gratitude, ripples through that reflection, shaping the contours of the world you see. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is the living mechanism of creation itself. You are constantly engaged in a dialogue with the cosmos, though most people never realize they are both the question and the answer. Every thought is a vibration, every emotion a sculpture's hand, and reality is the clay that responds to both. To understand this is to awaken from a long, collective dream. The dream that matter is primary and mind is secondary. In truth, the opposite is real. Matter is mind crystallized, thought slowed down until it becomes visible. When you hold a persistent belief, the field around you reshapes itself to reflect that vibration. The outer world follows the inner like a shadow follows the body. This is not manifestation in the casual sense. It is participation in the cosmic feedback loop, the same process that spins galaxies and grows trees. The only difference is that now, you are learning to do it consciously. This realization carries immense power, but it also demands responsibility. The moment you grasp that every thought births a universe, you can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer curse your life as unfair without acknowledging the creative hand within yourself. This is where spiritual maturity begins, not in control, but in coherence. You are not meant to micromanage reality, you are meant to align with it. When thought, emotion, and action vibrate in harmony, reality becomes fluid, obstacles dissolve, synchronicities multiply, and what once felt random begins to reveal orchestration. So how do we live this truth in a world that still worships distraction and noise? The first step is awareness. To be aware of your thoughts is to stand at the gate of creation. Every day, your mind produces thousands of impressions, many of which run on autopilot. Fear, worry, resentment, they are not just feelings, but frequencies that inform the universe what to mirror back. Most people unconsciously broadcast static and then wonder why their lives feel chaotic. Awareness interrupts that loop. The moment you see your thought before it hardens into form, you regain authorship of the script. The second step is emotional clarity. Thoughts are the architects, but emotion is the energy that builds. You may repeat affirmations or visualize outcomes endlessly. But if your emotional current vibrates in doubt or fear, you are constructing universes out of sand. Emotion is the power source, the cosmic ink that writes in light. When your emotions are coherent with your intention, creation accelerates. Love, gratitude, and curiosity are not sentimental virtues, they are frequencies of expansion. They open channels through which the infinite can move freely through you. Then comes embodiment. This is the bridge between metaphysics and matter. Embodiment means to live as though what you desire is already woven into the present moment. It is not pretense, it is resonance. Every gesture, word, and decision becomes an echo of the reality you are summoning. When your body, mind, and soul act as one instrument, reality cannot help but respond in kind. The universe is a perfect listener. It hears not what you wish, but what you are. But awareness is not only personal. Every thought you emit enters the shared field, the collective unconscious that binds humanity. When you cultivate coherence within yourself, you influence that field, however subtly. Peace is contagious, so is fear. Each act of mindfulness, each thought of compassion, strengthens the architecture of harmony in the collective dream. That is why the awakening of one person matters. The ripples of consciousness move outward, reorganizing patterns beyond what the eye can see. To change your inner world is to shift the gravitational center of reality itself. This understanding gives new meaning to everyday life. Suddenly, your morning ritual, your conversations, your silence, all become sacred laboratories. The office, the street, the home, each is a temple in disguise, a stage upon which your vibration performs. The practice is not escape from the world but deeper participation in it. You are not retreating into mysticism, you are translating the mystical into motion. The enlightened do not float above life, they illuminate it from within. There will be moments of forgetting, of course. Times when the old story reclaims you, when the illusion of separation tightens its grip. That is part of the rhythm, the inhale and exhale of awakening. The goal is not perfection but remembrance. Each moment you catch yourself reacting unconsciously is a moment reclaimed. Each choice to respond with awareness, instead of reflex, tilts your universe toward coherence. Creation is not a single act, it is a continuous unfolding. A sacred improvisation between you and infinity. The practical implications of this truth extend far beyond the individual. If humanity were to collectively realize that thoughts create worlds, entire systems would transform. War would be seen as mass projection, economy as collective belief, politics as the dance of shared fears and desires. Education would not merely train intellects but nurture consciousness. Medicine would address not only the body but the vibration that shapes it. Every field of human endeavor would realign around the invisible architecture of thought. The hidden proof they never taught us is that all of it, society, culture, technology, emerges from the quality of collective thinking. The outer world is humanity's shared dream in motion. Even science, once the temple of materialism, is beginning to sense this convergence. Quantum experiments show particles responding to observation. The universe behaves differently when looked upon consciously. If perception alters matter, then consciousness is not an observer, it is the prime mover. This insight bridges the ancient with the modern, the mystical with the empirical. The proof they hid was never truly hidden, it was simply encoded in the fabric of existence, waiting for a mind awake enough to notice. To live by this awareness is to live artistically, not just spiritually. You become a composer of experience, blending thought, feeling, and intention into a living symphony. Each moment becomes a canvas, each breath a brushstroke. The universe is your collaborator, not your adversary. The more harmoniously you paint, the more vividly the picture unfolds. You realize that miracles are not exceptions to the rule, they are the rule, glimpsed through the lens of coherence. And perhaps the most practical application of all is compassion. Once you understand that everyone is creating their world through the frequency of their consciousness, judgment dissolves. You begin to see others not as obstacles, but as fellow architects struggling with their own designs. Their anger, their confusion, their love, it all mirrors stages of remembrance. You stop asking, "Why are they like that?" and start asking, "What universe are they building? And what does it teach me about mine?" Compassion becomes the most advanced technology of consciousness because it harmonizes worlds. In the end, this is not about believing that thoughts create reality. It is about experiencing it directly, again and again, until belief becomes knowing. It is about walking through the world with eyes open, aware that each word, each choice, each silent thought echoes across infinite dimensions. You begin to live not cautiously, but reverently, aware that even the smallest thought is a seed from which galaxies grow. There comes a moment, quiet yet cataclysmic, when you realize that the universe is not outside you. It was never out there. Every sunset you admired, every heartbreak you endured, every coincidence that left you breathless, they were all whispers of your own consciousness echoing through the infinite. The stars, the storms, the strangers who crossed your path, all of them were reflections. Fragments of a grand conversation between you and the source that dreamed you into being. That is the hidden secret behind every thought you think creates a universe. You were never a spectator of creation, you were, and always will be, its architect. In the ancient silence before time, before atoms, before form, there was only awareness, vast, luminous, unbroken. From that stillness arose the first thought, I am. And from that vibration, universes spiraled into existence. When you think, you are not merely generating neural activity, you are participating in the same primordial act that birthed the cosmos. You are echoing that first divine thought, and each echo sends ripples across eternity. To awaken to this is to remember your original role, the dreamer dreaming worlds into form. Humanity, as a collective, has been living in a trance, a self-created illusion that thoughts are private. That reality is fixed, that consciousness is limited to the brain. Yet slowly, something is shifting. A quiet uprising of awareness is blooming beneath the noise. People are beginning to sense the fabric between things, to feel that their inner world and the outer are inseparable threads of one cosmic tapestry. The hidden proof that thought shapes reality is no longer confined to mystics or philosophers. It is emerging everywhere, in quantum physics, in psychology, in the synchronicities of daily life. The boundaries between mind and matter are dissolving. And what remains is the realization that everything is consciousness observing itself through infinite mirrors. When this truth lands, not as theory, but as lived knowing, the world begins to shimmer. The ordinary becomes sacred, the mundane becomes miraculous. A simple act of kindness, a fleeting moment of awe, becomes an act of cosmic calibration. Every smile, every sigh, every passing thought is sculpting a reality. You begin to see that the true apocalypse, the revelation, is not the destruction of the world, but the unveiling of how it was always created, thought by thought, vibration by vibration, dream by dream. The veil lifts, and you stand face to face with infinity, realizing that it wears your face. But awakening is not about escaping the human experience, it is about infusing it with divine remembrance. The goal is not to transcend thought, but to illuminate it. You were given the power to create, not to dominate, but to participate. The universe is not a machine, it's an orchestra, and you are both instrument and musician. Each thought you send forth becomes a note in the eternal composition. When played unconsciously, the song of life becomes chaotic and dissonant. But when thought becomes intentional, when it arises from love rather than fear, the music transforms into harmony. Creation sings back in resonance. And that, perhaps, is what the ancients meant when they said we are made in the image of God, not in form, but in function. We create as the Creator does, through thought, intention, and attention. The divine doesn't command the universe, it imagines it, feels it, dreams it into motion. So do you. When your consciousness aligns with that truth, miracles cease to be anomalies. They become the natural rhythm of life lived in awareness. But awakening also carries a quiet humility. For to realize your power is also to realize your interconnectedness. Every thought you release into the field touches countless lives, seen and unseen. You are part of a network of consciousness so vast that its threads stretch beyond galaxies. To think is to send ripples through existence itself. And when those ripples are born of compassion, the entire web brightens. One awakened heart can recalibrate millions. That is how universes evolve, not through revolution, but through remembrance. So how do we live this? Not by retreating into spiritual idealism, but by living awake within the human story. By walking through your day aware that each choice, each word, each breath, is a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. By pausing before you react, realizing that you are sculpting futures in that very instant. By forgiving, not because you are virtuous, but because forgiveness collapses timelines of suffering and releases new ones into being. By loving, not sentimentally, but as an act of creation itself, because love is the highest frequency of alignment between you and the source. And when you falter, and you will, remember this, even your moments of doubt, confusion, and fear are part of the creative process. They are the shadows that define the shape of the light. The universe does not judge them, it integrates them. Every contrast is a catalyst, every breakdown a bridge. You cannot fail at creation, you can only awaken more deeply into it. Each time you remember, you expand the cosmos itself, because consciousness is infinite learning itself through you. So the invitation is simple yet profound. Think with reverence, feel with intention, speak with awareness. The thoughts you nurture today are not confined to your mind, they are worlds in gestation. Treat them as sacred seeds, plant them in stillness, water them with emotion, and watch as reality bends to bloom around you. This is the true alchemy, the hidden science of the soul, the knowledge that the laboratory of creation is your own consciousness. And when you truly embody this, something miraculous happens. Time loosens its grip, fear dissolves, the future stops being a place you chase and becomes a current flowing through you. You are no longer living in the universe, you are living as the universe. Aware of itself. That is the moment the dreamer wakes up. That is the moment creation remembers its source. That is the moment you realize every thought you've ever had was not a whisper into emptiness. It was a spark lighting the stars. So now, as you close your eyes tonight and let your mind drift, remember, what you imagine next is not fantasy. It is architecture. It is energy arranging itself to mirror the shape of your consciousness. Be gentle with your thoughts. Be intentional with your dreams. Because somewhere, in the infinite web of realities, the universe is already rearranging itself to meet you halfway. And when you finally awaken to the truth of who you are, not just a thinker, but a creator of worlds, your life will no longer feel like something happening to you.